All right, guys, so in this video, we're going to do a detailed installation of the Fass lift pump on the Ford Excursion. I apologize, this video is much longer than I typically like to do. The reason for that is doing a YouTube search, I could not find any videos installing a lift pump on an Excursion. So it's going to be a detailed video, it's about 30 minutes long. Hope you guys enjoy it. All right, the lift pump has finally arrived. I think I've been waiting about 2 months for this. Let's see what's all in here. Oh my goodness. All right, let's see if we can get some of this out and organize it.
It's Daddy's channel.
All right, guys, so got a Fass 220 gallon per hour system on the way. I ordered it yesterday. So today's job is going to be drop the fuel tank and check for leaks. What happened, let's see, let me come over here. When I was installing these leaf springs a year or so ago, oh heck, it's been longer than that. About 3 years ago, I installed these leaf springs for a 4-inch lift, and doing it by myself in the garage, of course. When I was doing it, it slipped out of these shackles for these leaf springs, and if you see the fuel and vent tube run right by it, and when it slipped out, it hit these. And ever since then, I have a leak coming from the top of my fuel tank. So I don't know exactly where it's leaking from, but getting this truck all back together and running, I don't want that issue. So I'm going to drop the tank, see if I can figure out what's going on, make sure the fuel system's all good to go, fix whatever leak is there, and then we're going to go ahead and get everything set up and ready to go for the new lift pump that's coming in. All right, first step to dropping that tank is obviously getting the 20 or so gallons of diesel out of it so I can actually handle it. So got the little clip, pop the fuel line off the factory pump here, and I've got a hose running down to a tank. So the plan is to jump this pump, have it pump the fuel out, and I'll start filling up these 5-gallon buckets. So we'll see how it goes. All right, we finally got her draining. So let's flip the key on to the truck. We're draining into there. Fuel pump's running. So these fuel lines, one was really easy to get off. And you can see there's arrows on the pump. So the bottom one is going to the engine, the top one looks like a return. It's dripping diesel out right now, but I got the fuel pump running, connected here, and we're getting the fuel out of the tank. So disconnecting these fuel lines was quite the challenge. The top one popped right off really quick with the little tools. These right here. So I actually ended up doubling it up. The blue one's the correct size, but I just could not get this bottom one to release. It took me about 45 minutes, an hour of messing with it. Finally, I put the smaller one inside it, and it just made it a little bit thicker, and that seemed to work. It popped it loose, and then now we're going, finally. All right, first step, now that the tank is empty, is to pop these hose clamps and get the fill and return lines off. heard something buzzing right by my head as I'm trying to get the fuel tank out. So yeah, you can tell the truck hasn't moved in a while. So I'm about to go get something to take care of these guys so they don't take care of me while I'm trying to get this fuel tank out of here. And my head, look how close that is to those lines that I was taking apart. My head was right by them. So trying to get those hoses off the top of that tank is just, there's not much room. See if this helps, if I can get this filler neck out of there. Maybe it'll help. All right, we got the filler neck out. Then I went ahead and pulled this inner fender out. And now I can get to the filler neck real easy, so I should be able to wiggle this out of here now. All right, got this out, and I've already figured out, I don't know if you guys remember from the beginning, I said I had a fuel tank leak. Well, my vent line was disconnected from the top of the tank. So that's why whenever I filled it up, fuel would just pour out the top of the tank. And so, all right, problem solved. All right, guys, got those hoses out. Fuel tank is held on by what looks like 4 bolts. There's 2 here in the back, right there. One on this side I've already got loose. And then there's 2 more up here in the front. Let's see if I can get those. There they are, right there in the front. And hopefully it'll come down. Fuel tank's empty, so hopefully it doesn't weigh entirely too much. Coming down. Don't know if there's any electrical connectors. I assume there's gotta be. Yeah, it looks like there's enough slack though in the wire. All right, there we go. Fuel tank's down. This is just the overflow that we already unhooked. All right, looking good. All right, this is top of the tank. We've got the fuel lines, obviously, and then there's one connector there. Can't quite see it, but there was enough slack to lower the tank. So that's what I was worried about, there being enough slack. So the tank's dropped. I'll try to get to that connector. I can't even get a good shot of it. Fuel lines, and there's a connector on the other side. Let's see. There we go. Ah, connector's up there. So there we go. Connector's up there for that, and then we'll have to pop the fuel lines off as well. All right, the connector was right up there. That's undone right there. And the 2 fuel lines are undone, so I marked one of them with blue tape so I know which way they go back together. All right, let's get this fuel tank out from underneath here. Like I always do, I stick the bolts back where they go. Look at that dirt dauber nest up there behind it. And the bolts are back in place. I'm talking about losing them. I think I'm going to scuff this up and give it a coat of coat of Rust-Oleum or something just to clean it up. But anyway, start looking at getting that lift pump installed. All right, guys, so this is the fuel tank out, obviously. We know step one of the lift pump is gonna be cut a hole in the top of this. So I wanna start with a clean. I'm gonna start with cleaning it up, obviously, as I don't want to risk getting stuff in the tank. As you can see, it is filthy. So we're gonna clean this thing up, and then we'll start getting the install going. So scuffed all this up and just hit it with a quick little shot of Rust-Oleum just to clean it up, make it look nice, hopefully protect it. Yeah, I'm fully aware this is more than just a little bit overkill, but just seeing that surface rust on there, I just wanted to clean it up so anytime I'm up under the truck, you know, it'll look a little bit nicer. All right, so this cleaned up really good. Quick little spray. All right, so here's everything unpacked out of the Fass lift pump box. You got your draw straw. They even give you zip ties. These fittings, these MPT fittings, actually already have thread sealer on them. Miscellaneous mounting hardware and stuff for the pumps. You've got your the bulkhead adapter for the draw straw. Let's see, you've got your ADA circuit, some O-rings. Then you've got the electrical and the fuel lines. All right, so actually step one is the electrical, which I'm not going to do right now. Step two is preparing your bulkhead fittings and everything, so that way I can go out there and figure out where I need to mount this thing onto the fuel pump, or onto the fuel tank rather. So step one is you take this 110, and you're going to add thread locker to that, and then this 104 part goes into the return side that already has the sealant tape on it, or the thread sealer on it. So we got to put that in here, and let me add some thread locker to this, and we'll get rolling here. All right, once you have these in, you have to torque them to 20 foot-pounds, which is 240 inch-pounds. So let's go ahead and get these torqued. So it's impossible to hold. So I set it in the vise and allowed me to torque it correctly. All right, these are torqued. I took the nut and the lock washer off. The last step is to check this O-ring here. The O-ring is on, and then push on the straw. There we go. All right, so I had slid the tank back under the truck to check for clearance of where to mount this thing. So it's looking like the best spot I'm gonna shoot for is gonna be right in here, something like that. Obviously it'll be raised up a little bit, but I'm gonna see if I can make something like this work. So I'm gonna pop this open and see where the float sits to make sure it's not gonna interfere, the straw is not gonna interfere with that. So let's pop this, let's break this seal and unscrew this and pull the sending unit out. Try to reduce the risk of getting anything more in the tank than we have to. Alright, let's see where the float sits in there. So the float sits at that angle. I think we're good. When you line up these pinholes like this, so the float actually sits that way, so it should be completely out of the way. There we go. And interesting, I've heard about this pickup tube breaking in these Fords, and sure enough, see if it'll focus on that. It's broken off there. There's some pieces of plastic down in the tank. The good news is that there's no need worrying about this piece being broken since I'm going to be running the sump pump. I don't need this piece, but it looks like it's actually, let's see if this is it. Look at that. There's the pickup. It's down on the bottom of the tank, just sitting there. All right, we have a 1 3/8" hole saw and just a solo cup here. Try to catch some of this debris out of here. All right, let's continue here. There we go. And the hole fell right into the cup. While the cup's still here, I'm going to sweep some of this stuff off of here. The next step is we have to trim this pickup straw to where it's 1/8 of an inch off the bottom of the tank. So there's the bottom of the tank. Let's go up, so it's about 2 1/2 to the right where the seal starts. Then you got to add another 1/16 for the seal. So if we're just about 2 5/8 is going to be really close to about 1/8 off the bottom of the tank. So I'm going to just go ahead and cut 2 5/8 off of this straw. All right, this stuff cuts really easy with I just used a hacksaw blade. It cut super quick, no issues. And it's sitting down. What? Wow, all right, that looks pretty good. All right, for fear of not being able to get these fuel lines on once this thing is bolted down or sorry, you know, fastened down there good, I'm gonna go ahead and try to put this fuel line on now. That way, in case I can't get it on, I have a little extra wiggle room. It does recommend in the manual to use some oil, some motor oil. So I've got some fresh oil here I'm rubbing on these fittings. And hopefully that allows it just to slide right on. All right, so the 1/2 inch line goes on the suction side. Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to try to do this when it was all the way on for sure. All right, guys, I'm not gonna take any chances. I came over here and brought it back in here to put it in the vise for this other side. Hopefully this side will be a little easier. Make sure I got plenty of oil on here. So maybe that was part of the problem. I didn't get enough oil inside that last line. Just using a zip tie to get the oil down in there good. All right, here goes nothing. Just got it sitting here on the vise just so I have something to push against. Oh yeah, there we go. Much easier. All right, now that we got the fuel lines attached, the manual does say you can add some Loctite to this if you want a little extra security. And I'll go ahead and drop this guy in. All right. Locking washer and nut. Good God. Reinstall the sending unit here. Float to come down. Put the float right back where it was. And I did wipe down and clean this seal. In fact, let me just put it on here the way it should go. There we go. And that's sitting back in its place. There we go. All right. Tap this girl on down. All right, we got everything buttoned back up here. Everything's looking good. Got my vent line that was off put back on there. Everything's kind of cleaned up, ready to go. So now it's time to install. Oh, I didn't like the way this hose was moving a little bit, and since I had so much kill mat left over from doing the interior, it actually worked really good just to set that return line down so it doesn't want to wiggle around as I'm driving. I started to try with a zip tie method and it was still moving too much, so I just a few pieces of kill mat on there, and man, that thing is not going anywhere. All right, guys, I got the lines plugged back in, the sending unit. So everything's plugged in. Now it's just going to be slow and steady while I lift it up, and I'm going to have to move the that fill and vent line over there. Going to have to make sure they come over the axle as I jack it up, and same thing with these new fuel lines that I put in. I'm going to have to make sure those go over the axle as I lift it up. All right, guys, so that definitely worked. It's almost a straight shot now for that 1/2 inch line. You can actually kind of see the zip tie back in there. It's right, well, anyway, it's hard to see. It's hard to show exactly where I ran it, but right behind the shock on the driver's side rear, through that hole. And then this is where the lift pump's gonna mount. So this worked out really good. It took a little while to figure out where to mount them. But I think in the end, it actually came out nice. And you can see there's, I'll get my finger out of the way. You can see that there's plenty of slack. They're not being pinched at all. There we go. Got it. Got the fill and vent tubes hooked back up. So those are in. I just need to tighten the hose clamps on them. Definitely the way to do that is to pull out this filler neck. So I still have to screw this thing in, but that's loose still. But the vent and fill tubes are back connected. All right, now that we got the fuel tank mounted, the next step is part 10300 to port E and 1032 to port T. So this is 10300 right here, and that goes to port E, and then 10302 goes to port T right there. So I'm going to set this up in the vise and get these torqued down. There we go. All right, next step is to lightly just kind of mock up this bracket on here. Something like that. All right, so now that this piece is mounted, you have this piece of steel with this rubber isolator mount. This is supposed to slide into a bed channel underneath a truck. We'll see what the Excursion has underneath there. And then this will be inside the channel like that, obviously, because the rubber is isolating it. And then this will be mounted underneath, and then the bolt will go through to hold it like that. And then once that's mounted underneath the truck, that's when this piece will mount to here. So that's how it goes together. Okay, so for the lift pump, I'm going to mount it right here. I'm going to use this bracket, but you can see I can't go any further because it's hitting that about half a hole off. So I'm just going to take a little bit off the back side of this thing. We'll be set. All right, after the trimming, it sets up just fine, and this allows you to adjust your depth. I'm gonna try to tuck it in as close as I can to this frame rail here. So I ended up flipping this bracket around the other way. As you can see, I can lift this while holding it. It's going to allow it to tuck in there real nice with it flipped that way. All right, so I've got it kind of mocked in place. You can see I can't slide it any more forward because of the body mount, but it is tucked in nicely up against the frame rail, and then it's, you know, kind of protected from this side actually with all the brackets. So these are just finger tight, and then around here on the back side is where the 1/2-inch fuel line from the suction tube comes in. And man, that's all the slack they give you. So it's gonna be, I mean, I'm probably not gonna have to cut anything. It's just gonna put the fitting in and thread it in, and we're gonna be there. So I think this is where it's gonna stay. I might snug everything down now. All right, with the lift pump mounted, I wanted to see if you could see it. You can barely start to see the filters right there, but that's with me squatting down on the ground. When I'm standing, so you really can't see it at all. It's tucked in. Tried to get it tucked in as best I could, keep it protected. The only place you can see it is when you get back here and look down here where by the rear tire. Even that, you can kind of see it if you know what you're looking at, but the point of it was just trying to get it up and away as much as possible. So there it is with the filters just threaded in. So I like the spot. I haven't finished running the fuel line yet. This was just a test fit to see if I like that location once the filters are on. So I found my first problem trying to plumb all the fuel lines to the actual lift pump. If you remember, this piece right here is called out as 1032, and it goes into the T side of the lift pump. So this is where your suction line, your 1/2-inch suction line, connects to your lift pump. So the 1/2-inch suction line would use this nipple. There's only 3 of these that are female threads that you connect your fuel line to your actual lift pump. There's 3 of them. This one's for the 1/2-inch line. You can see the difference. So this is what fits the 1/2-inch line coming from the suction, which you're supposed to connect to this. Unfortunately, they're not the same. They're the wrong size. I think this is 5/8, and this side is 5/8 that threads right into the lift pump. But this side appears to be 1/2-inch. So the 1/2-inch ones work just fine. These two, one is for the high pressure side that goes to your engine. The other one is for your return line that goes back to your tank from that R port on the tank section assembly that we set up. So these are the only 3 pieces that can possibly work. I've gone through the instructions 100 times. It doesn't appear that I could have screwed anything else up. These 3 are the only ones that are left. Obviously, if you screwed this onto here, which it would work, but then it doesn't fit your 1/2-inch fuel line. The fuel line just slides right on and off of it. So I believe they sent me, I think this should be 5/8 and 5/8. That's what would make sense, and that's what would work. So unfortunately, I couldn't find a 90, but I did run to Ace Hardware, and I have just a straight piece. So this is 5/8 that will thread right in, and I've already checked it. It'll thread right in as it should. I need to put some Teflon tape on it, and then the tapered MPT fit is also 5/8, which will thread correctly and then plug right in. So I do have a call in to both Fass and Kill Devil Diesel, where I bought the lift pump from, to see if they've seen that issue before. But this should work just fine. So we'll see. This is how I'm going to run it for now, and then I'll keep you posted on if I hear anything back with that. Got all the fuel lines plumbed up. So there's the 1/2-inch line coming from the suction, coming from the tank, with that adapter that I purchased. On this side, the R port right there is your return. So that's looping back, going back to the tank. And then this port is, I think it's the E port, is what's gonna run up down the frame rail. And then it's connecting, it's going to connect to the factory fuel line right there. It's actually going to connect there. So now it's time to tie in the fuel pump line. I get up here to where the stock lift pump is. We got to tie in to these lines. This is the line going to the engine. This is the return line. And what you need to realize is that you have different size lines here. So the barb fit is the same because they're all going to this same smaller line, but don't screw this up. The bigger diameter is for the fuel in, and then these other 2 of the smaller diameter are going to be used to jump this return line back to there. to bypass the stock lift pump. I finished up plumbing the lift pump. So this is the line coming from the lift pump right here into the fuel into the engine. And then this return line basically just bypasses the stock lift pump. So it comes with these two connectors here, and you just use this last little piece of tubing, and that's it just jumps the lift pump for a return back. So I also added these little rubber vacuum caps just to plug the cover up the holes to the factory lift pump, so those are sealed up and cleaned up. And then you have one of these I think this one is the water sensor, and then I think this one is a heater. And then the power line connects right there behind it, and you can see I have it unplugged. So this is what I'm gonna splice into from the power from the lift pump. I'm just gonna cut and splice and connect it right here, and then should be all set. So I have the electrical harness here laid out on the garage floor just to go over it, to show you all it is. Like everything else in this kit, it's very, very well done. So down here, this is what plugs in directly to the lift pump. So that's just quick, easy plug and play. That plugs right in. And then this wire would run down, and then you would mount this relay somewhere, most likely under the hood. Mount this relay, they give you the relay for it. And then at the relay is where it splits off. You have your 12-volt power source, so this would go right to your battery. So this would split, run up, they give you the terminals to thread right onto your battery. The other side of the Y is what would go to your key on power source. So they give you the ADA circuit here with the fuse, and then you would just strip this and add this to a circuit in your fuse panel that is powered when the key turns on. However, what I think I'm going to do instead of doing all this is I am just gonna take this, run it, and cut it somewhere and just tie in directly to the 12-volt source from the factory lift pump. So I'm gonna cut that connector off the 12-volt source and wire it into here. And that way, all this is already taken care of from the factory, basically. That's how I'm gonna do it. I understand why they don't suggest doing it that way, because now you're cutting your factory wiring, and then you're eliminating being able to use your factory lift pump in case something happens in the future. But I'll save the connector. I can always put it back on. Lift pump install is complete. I wired into the factory lift pump right there. So this wire is what runs all the way back to the stock lift pump, or the Fass lift pump, sorry. Well, there it is, installed. I did like the instructions say. I cycled the key and sprayed the WD-40 up in the one side to lubricate it. I don't have any fuel in my tank or anything, so I can't prime the system or anything. Plus, I'm going to be pulling the engine when the engine finally comes in, so there's no need priming the system just to undo everything. So there we go, installed. So I wanted to give this a shot. I ordered the pocket style fender flares for a Super Duty, and as everyone knows, the wheel well is the same on the Excursion, except the door will hit somewhere around right here, so you have to modify these flares to make it work. So I'm going to give this a shot and kind of see what it looks like. I'm definitely not a body guy, so maybe in this next video I'll throw these on and kind of start messing with that. I still have the brakes I can put on. I'm still waiting obviously on the engine and transmission. So I'm trying to get as many things done as I can before the engine and trans show up.